guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Advanced Bass Fishing, and appreciate you guys swinging by the channel and checking out today's episode. And guys, today we're going to be talking about everybody's favorite color of soft plastic lure, green pumpkin. And I'm going to sort of explain to you guys why green pumpkin works so good, the situations that green pumpkin works good in as far as the conditions, and actually some things that you can do to modify a green pumpkin lure to actually get more bites on it. So going to get into that in today's episode here. Also, guys, thank you very much for everybody who's taken time to hit that subscribe button here to Advanced Bass Fishing. If you haven't done so, I'd like to invite everybody to do that. It's a good way to support the channel. And also, guys, if you like the tips that I'm giving here on Advanced Bass Fishing and you want to show some support for the channel in exchange for those fishing tips, if you just go into my description of this video and use all the links I put in there, especially my Tackle Warehouse link to purchase any tackle that you may need through Tackle Warehouse. Great way to support Advanced Bass Fishing, and me and my family really appreciate that. Okay, the most famous color in bass fishing, green pumpkin lures. They come in any soft plastic that you can find on the market, which are hundreds of different companies. Green pumpkin is the #1 seller by far. Bass see more green pumpkin lures than any other color out there, and for good reason. It's probably the best color of soft plastic lure to catch fish on. And I think a lot of reasons for this is it's a natural color that resembles a lot of forage. Crawfish have a lot of green in them, so it could resemble a crawdad. It can resemble a perch. It just looks natural and alive in the water in a lot of different water visibilities and sunlight conditions. That's the one thing that really makes green pumpkin stand out above any other color out there, is the diversity of water clarity that it works in. So it's sort of like, it's not really like translucent like a watermelon is, yet it's not darker as a dark color. It's just sort of a perfect in-between color. And it's one of those mysteries of bass fishing. Fish just really, really like a green pumpkin lure. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the conditions that a green pumpkin lure works good in, specifically water clarity. And I want to talk about a few modifications. First of all, green pumpkin works in water. I've caught fish on green pumpkin baits and anywhere between water visibility between, a foot to 15-foot clarity, 1 foot clarity to 15-foot clarity, and everything in between. But here is some tips and advice I want to give you based upon water clarity matching a green pumpkin to it. Now, the straight green pumpkin like this, I don't use just a straight green pumpkin very often. For me, if I want to use a straight green pumpkin lure, I've got to have water visibility in a very specific range of about, say, anywhere between, say, 3 to 5 foot, something like that. There's something about 3 to 5 foot of visibility. A lot of times I'll just use a straight green pumpkin. But if I have water visibility a little bit dirtier than that, or maybe a little bit cleaner, I'm going to be adding some type of dye to my tails, specifically on the green pumpkin. Okay, now a lot of this has to do with the water visibility in terms of how you want to dye your lure. Now let's talk a little bit about the clear situation. If I'm in a clear situation, like the water visibility is over 4 foot, I don't know what it is about it, is I like to put a little bit of chartreuse just on the very tips of the pinchers or on the very end of the plastic worm I'm using with just a marking pin here. So let me give you a little example of what I'm talking about here. Not much. There's something about, I don't know what it is, but just a little bitty puff of chartreuse right on the tail of the lure like that. Guys, that works really good in clear water. If you got water visibility of over 4 or 5 foot, I always put just a little bitty puff of chartreuse on the bottom of it. And as the water visibility goes down, say for example, 3 foot is my bottom clarity reading to use a straight green pumpkin. As the water visibility goes down, the amount of chartreuse or orange, I'll use orange or chartreuse, goes up also. So say for example, if the water visibility is 2 foot, I may put like that much chartreuse in it, about maybe half the pinchers or maybe a ½ inch up on the worm. And if the water visibility is like 1.5 foot or dirtier water, I may go in like this and I may, put like a whole inch of it in there, make it really, really chartreuse. This way, the amount of dye that you use on a bait allows you to diversify in water clarities. Now you can do this like on a green pumpkin, you can put blue dye on it. A lot of crawfish have they're green with blue pinchers. green with orange pinchers can be good, and chartreuse is a really good perch imitator here. So the amount of dye that you put on the pinchers is really indicative of the water clarity and also the water, the skylight conditions. So say for example, if I use a full inch of dye on my tail of my plastic worm or my pinchers or my Z-hogs and stuff like that, if the water visibility is say 1.5 feet deep. I will also use a full inch of dye if the water visibility is like 2.5 or 3 foot in clarity, if it's a cloudy, overcast, or rainy day, like a low light condition like that. And conversely, if the water visibility is a little bit dirtier, like 1.5 foot visibility, and I have a real bright sunlight day, I may not use as much chartreuse. I may go to a little 1/4 inch. So you really have to experiment with the dye amount based upon the sunlight level, time of day, shady bank, just your light intensity and water visibility in general. But one thing that I will say about a green pumpkin lure, it normally works better with some type of dye on it. And you don't have to have very much, but I just like it on there. I notice a definite difference. I don't care if I'm using a shaky head worm, I'll put a little bit on the tail there. Even if I'm using a Ned rig, say I'm using, a soft plastic stick bait, just biting off, a little bit like that for a Ned rig, I'll put a little puff of chartreuse on the tail of it. So I don't use straight green pumpkin very much. I mean, now other colors I will. If I'm using something like a watermelon candy or some other variations, a lot of times I'll just use the plain color. Green pumpkin always works better with some dye on it. And another thing that you always want to do on your, we've talked about this if you've been with my channel long, is rough your green pumpkins up. Just break the salt up, because most of these baits, they have salt in them. And if you break that salt up, it makes the bait softer, and it also gives that green pumpkin a different look. It gives it it lightens it up a little bit and gives it sort of a cool glow to it. But anyway, guys, you can't go wrong with green pumpkin. Like I said, one of the things that I like to do, like I said, I'm a big believer in dye. I have a lot of different dyes in the boat, because the reason I do that, another reason besides the fact the fish like them, is everybody fishes green pumpkin. And if you can do something a little bit different with the colorations on it, it can really make a difference. And another thing, guys, is try some blue dye. Blue dye on green pumpkin is really good. I'll put some of the Spike at Dye link and my Tackle Warehouse link in the description if you guys would like to get set up on some dyes there. They got a bunch of different colors. But blue is really good on the end of a green pumpkin, and a lot of people don't know that, or they don't see it. And also black is good. I've used black dye on the tail of worms and crawdads too. It works pretty good on green pumpkin. So anyway, guys, hope it helps you catch a few, and we'll check in later.